Hollywood artists panic, get zero work, and leave the business. From the Los Angeles Times, quote, "It's like you're starting from scratch. Hollywood's below-the-line artists pivot to other gigs." In Hollywood, below the line refers to the separation of production costs between script and story writers, producers, directors, actors, and casting. Those are above the line, and the rest of the crew or production team. That production team don't provide input, guidance, creative development, or leadership on the project. Of course, if you're an artist and you're working on a Hollywood project, you are providing creative input. But they don't see it that way, so you're not treated the same as the people above you. And now they can't even get paid work. Production designer Dave Blass wrapped his last big project, filming the Paramount Plus series Star Trek Picard in Toronto in 2022, before the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA walkouts hit last year. Even now, almost a year after those strikes ended, the two-time Emmy nominee winner says Hollywood's production designers, set directors, and their crews still have little work. Quote, "I'm just trying to stay positive and get through this," says Blass, adding that others are far worse off. He continues, "Most people have been hanging on by their fingernails, and they're running out of fingernails. I know Emmy Award winners who are driving around delivering auto parts." This happens to freelance artists all the time, in every field. But it's never been so bad in Hollywood as it is now. To pay bills, Blass has taken short-term graphic design gigs and sold autographs at Star Trek conventions. He's taking lessons to become an FAA-licensed drone photographer for real estate listings. Quote, "It's like you're starting from scratch," he says. As a member of what's broadly known as the art department, production designers, set directors, art directors, graphic artists, illustrators, model makers, scene painters, construction crews, and more, Blass belongs to the vast pool of below-the-line talent who do not earn profit participation or residuals. So no matter how good what you contribute is, you're not going to get paid anything extra for it, even if it does well. It can help you get the next job, and it can help you overall get more money if there's work to be had, but you're not going to get any profit participation. Nevertheless, even though they don't get residuals and profit participation, during the 2023 strikes, these artists picketed in solidarity with writers and actors who continue to make money after the final frames are shot. And those are the above-the-line people. The hourly workers with rates that start around $40 per hour and flat-fee contract players of the art department are responsible for transforming the blank canvases of sound stages and backlots into the suburban cul-de-sacs and intergalactic space stations you see on screen. But despite the recent ratification of their own union contracts, with a 7% pay bump in hourly rates for the first year, many art department workers are still looking at plummeting bank balances and blank work schedules as Hollywood's TV and film businesses contract and the flight of production overseas contributes to a painful industry slowdown. And that flight of work overseas shows no sign of stopping. All those foreign countries paying massive subsidies to Hollywood to try to bring work for their populations. Quote, "It's not easy for a production designer to pivot," says Suzuki Ingerslev, a 30-year veteran of hit shows such as HBO's True Blood and 6 Feet Under, noting that carpenters can do home renovations, painters can paint houses, and set decorators can shift their skills to interior design. After 18 years, Jennifer Fulmer, a set director on 4 seasons of ABC's Blackish spin-off Grownish, says the slowdown has made her feel like she's stepped back in time to the early days of her career. She hasn't worked since March, and her income has dropped by half. Quote, "I know a lot of people who've moved. One set dresser I know is working as a lifeguard this summer," she says. Right now, Fulmer earns money from an Airbnb in Big Bear that she owns and decorated, and she's been considering a side hustle helping people decorate their Airbnbs or doing event planning. Cheryl Murphy joined her union as a buyer for set decorators and 20 years later became one herself. The pandemic, strikes, and subsequent production pauses made finding jobs in her new union classification challenging. Quote, "Becoming a set decorator was a whole new hustle. I had to make a new set of connections. She's been unemployed for more than a year and a half and finds it hard to respond when friends and neighbors have asked, quote, 'The strikes ended, so what do you mean you're not working?' She goes on to say, 'You're frozen in this state because you don't want to take another side gig that you'll have to quit immediately when a set decorating job comes along. It's taxing financially and emotionally. Weird, depressing, frustrating. She's taken up pet sitting and odd jobs like painting houses. Quote, I started to do personal organizing, which I like, she adds. It's basically Marie Kondoing people's houses. For more than 40 years, property master Ellen Freund has provided, quote, anything that an actor touches and holds, she says, in high-profile projects including 52 episodes of Mad Men and the Tom Ford-directed film Nocturnal Animals. Though based in Los Angeles, Freund largely works overseas, where she trains locals who often rise rapidly to more senior positions because of the smaller talent pool. So she's going overseas, and pretty much you don't have a choice, and she's not getting work, but she's training people that are basically replacing her and other people trying to find work in LA. Freund finished the second season of the AMC series Interview with the Vampire in Prague before last Christmas. Quote, my phone has not been ringing since returning. I know there is work on low-budget productions in Los Angeles right now, but it's not what I would be called for. In the meantime, she's freelancing as a head of production for Poppy Bright Entertainment, representing Dunkin' Donuts and Tana Beer for free product placement on camera. Quote, it's not full-time, she says, but it's making my mortgage. The crews and assistants who work for department heads are also feeling the pinch. Charles Serrano, a set construction coordinator since 1985 on multi-camera TV shows, might hire 25 laborers just to shoot a pilot. He estimates that he and his crews have lost at least 25% of their work since 2021. Quote, I can't be out there swinging a hammer with guys in their 20s, says Serrano, who at 63 years old lives in Santa Clarita and has what's often 2 hours of commuting to and from work, which lately has included repair work on studio sound stages and short stints on pilots. But without this last pilot, I was 1 month away from losing my medical benefits and having to take retirement. Younger newcomers to the industry have been particularly challenged by the current production vacuum, which recently caused the Art Directors Guild to pause its production design initiative, a supervised job placement program that puts candidates on a path to becoming assistant art directors. Because obviously they couldn't place anyone because there are no jobs to be had. After joining the Art Directors Guild in 2021, Jamie Fangleham did graphic design, creating signs for sets of Never Have I Ever and Daisy Jones and the Six, and picking up intermittent work on commercials after the strikes. Quote, I've only worked in this streaming era where there was so much work, she says. I'm not married and I don't have kids. I live with a roommate in Los Feliz and pay $1,200 a month rent, but I got really scared, she says. And as she's trying to find work in a new industry, she's found out that her graphic designer resume for television looked insane to an advertising agency. Instead of seeking advertising jobs, she started teaching art for a nonprofit and working part-time for $17 an hour. Beyond the financial pain of being out of work in a city with a high cost of living, many art department creatives have also weathered personal crises. Losing homes or the opportunity to buy them, relocating, breaking up and divorcing. In the current economy, even joyful life events can become stressful. A set decorator worked for 6 weeks in 2023 and then had her first child last May. After qualifying for $450 a week in unemployment for 25 weeks, disability payments, and California paid family leave, she's been living off her savings while adjusting to the demands of motherhood. Quote, I've been thinking, how am I going to survive? Do I need to change careers? I asked a mentor how to level up in my career, and she said go to a different market. It's really difficult to understand when an industry goes from a boom to a bust cycle like Hollywood has. The work that was there just a few years ago, because of all the streaming services and all that competition for work, isn't there anymore, and it's impossible for it to come back. There would have to be another boom cycle. But in the future years, maybe when there is another boom cycle, it's going to get filled by AI. This work is not coming back. Even in boom times, the Hollywood film industry's long hours are not kind to people with young families, says scenic painter Miriam Hellman. As a 10-year member of the Set Painters and Sign Writers Union, she began to pivot after the birth of her second child just before the pandemic when, she says, streamers were throwing spaghetti against the wall, which had all the earmarks of a tech bubble that would burst. Now that the industry is contracting, she devotes more of her time to her business, Off-World Murals. Quote, when the strike started, I got to employ scenic painters I've worked with who were out of work. We've done murals on new apartment buildings. and restore to 1920s theater, she says. Quote, I'm not going to give up because people still value work that is handcrafted with care. To me, AI is wasteful. I would rather see something real than a computerized remix. Protections and regulations around artificial intelligence, a key issue in the writers and actors strikes, may even be more critical for designers, says Brett Phillip, a model maker who creates 3D architectural scale models of sets for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Quote, do I have a viable career for the next 10 years before I reach retirement age, he asks? And I'm really concerned for people who are coming into model making right now. A member of her union for 25 years worked her way up from production assistant to production designer and worked as a graphic designer on Abbott Elementary. She is tackling the emerging technology head on. Quote, in 2024, I've worked a total of 2 weeks, she says, noting that she has not had a production job since May 2023. Her rent rose to $2,500 in January, and the money she had set aside for a down payment on a house is dwindling. Quote, I had almost $90,000 set aside to buy a house, and that's pretty much gone. She's recently enrolled in a master's program to learn digital art, 3D design, and animation. Quote, we're all scared of AI taking our jobs, she says, so I figured I might as well learn it. Most industry employees, even the executives, see the slow and painful restart of Made in LA production as a part of a broader business model reset. Quote, I don't see the old school 22-episode orders anymore, says assistant art director and set designer Gail Russell, who since 1996 has specialized in multi-camera sitcoms. Quote, I've had 6 weeks of work since April of this year, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of hopping around, shooting 10 episodes, and then not doing anything for the next 10 or 5 months. I'm in an $1,175 a month apartment, and they're going to have to scrape me off the floor at some point. But I got to keep the good vibes pushing out because people can smell fear. In addition to technology that has the power to eliminate even more jobs, quote, the worst part is that no one can give us a clear outlook on where we're heading. According to a production designer with 2 decades of prestige TV series credits, including Prime Video's Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, Apple TV Plus's Pachinko, and Interview with the Vampire. Other than that, if you have a job offer, take it. Increasingly, that also means taking your show on the road to places where productions have moved for tax credits and other incentives. Quote, the dream of living and working in LA is becoming more difficult, says Wes Hotman, an art director for film and television. You have to be willing to go wherever and whenever the work is. His colleague, assistant art director Megan Pallone, adds that for people in their early 30s, the new normal is leaving California to get jobs in Georgia, Texas, Montana, and even Hawaii. Quote, California is the 5th largest economy in the world, Blast says pointedly. Why aren't we blowing Georgia's tax credits out of the water to keep Hollywood in Hollywood? It's a race to the bottom, says Art Directors Guild National Executive Director Chuck Parker. In almost all situations around the globe, you're going to settle for a skill set that is much less than what we have available right here in Los Angeles. The same thing happened in the United States when manufacturing was moved overseas. The cultural impact of the city's entertainment properties is dependent on the vast resources and generations of expertise that can be found only in Los Angeles, according to Art Directors Guild President Dina Lipton. Quote, how would Star Trek be made without the Enterprise? Or Cheers without that bar, she asks. How could you go Back to the Future without the art department? Well, they're doing it overseas, and there really isn't actually an Enterprise spaceship. It's a set. And it's also done digitally now. So, I mean, really, this is the problem. Technology eventually seems like it wipes out everything. So you've got to keep up with technology. Michael Wiley, who will be returning to the set of Avatar: The Last Airbender after 18 months without work, remains committed to the power of visual storytelling. Quote, we just came out of the second golden age of television, and now we're in a desert wasteland. I have to believe this is a cycle that will end. Everyone will stab the beast and get a big piece of steak, and then we can go back to work and do cool stuff. I have 25 years experience at a high level, says the production designer who recently turned 60. Don't throw me on the heap just yet. Technology always changes everything. Cable TV was a technology. It greatly affected the TV and the film industry. Videotapes and DVDs greatly affected the TV and the film industry, and everyone working in that industry. Streaming has been a massive shakeup, but if you notice, it's really all about getting closer to the consumer. giving the consumer more options to consume the entertainment. Hollywood didn't start showing movies in movie theaters because they had a lot of alternatives to distribute their product. They had no alternatives. Movie theaters was the only way to show the same product in multiple places at the same time. But as technology and distribution moves on, jobs get replaced, and the technology revolution that allows streaming and artificial intelligence is going to make this last evolution in Hollywood much more difficult for the studios and much more difficult for people, especially the people below the line. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.